us into the burial of the founding father. The announcement of his passing coming on Constitutional Day, a poignant day on the calendar of the country on the 9th of February by President Nangolo. Of course, news has taken aback all of Namibia as well as the rest of the continent as they're celebrating the life and times of the last living founding fathers on the continent. For today, we're focusing, of course, on his economic policies and reflecting a lot more on the relationship that his administration had with private business. Of course, at the advent of independence, we know that there were big priorities for the country. How do we make sure that we secure economic participation for the previously disadvantaged? At the same time, while making sure that we create a conducive environment for private sector investment and for foreign direct investment into the country as well. Now, for this tough balancing act, it would take quite some time for the president for us to get to where we are right now. Of course, policies that started off during his administration, followed by that of President Pohamba and then President Geingob just recently, of course, with President Nangolo in the hot seat. We're now joined by the Chief Executive Officer at the Namibia Airports Company, but in his capacity this time around as the President of the Namibia Chamber of Commerce and Industry, who is, of course, the leading figure in terms of Namibia's business sector representation, particularly private businesses, including small and medium enterprises, Mr. Bisey Uirab, to reflect on Nujoma's vision and influence on business and, of course, also some of his historical postings that he had held. Mr. Uirab, thank you so much for making time out to join us this morning.
Thank you, Ricardo, for having me here, and good morning to the listeners.
Well, before we get into the policy discussion, I just wanted to find out from you, where were you and how did you receive the news on the passing of the founding father? What were some of your initial reactions?
Thank you, Ricardo. All of us knew as Namibians that the founding father was sick in the hospital, and obviously we would get regular update from the family and from the office of the president on the condition of our founding father. However, when that news hit us on Sunday morning, I was on the farm with my wife, and I was still enjoying my Sunday morning sleep, and my wife just woke me up around 6 o'clock in the morning and told me about what was posted on social media about the passing of our founding father. And that moment was a moment that I never dreamt would come in my life and in the life of the Namibian people. It came a shock, although we all knew that he was sick, and it was just a disbelief. It was in the month of February. It was a Sunday morning. The announcement made almost around midnight, and there were just too many similarities between the announcement that was made in respect of our late President, Comrade Geingob, and of course our founding father. So it was not a good news while we knew that he was very sick. Many of us never thought that a brave soldier like President Nujoma would one day be defeated by death. But that is what we have, and we must just celebrate his life.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Mr. Uirab, if you can just reflect a little bit. We know, of course, that with a lot of people that I've been speaking to, there's always that story around this larger-than-life figure that you would hear about on radio and so on before independence, before they would actually meet him in person. But did you also have a similar experience, or what is your earliest account of hearing about the founding father and actually meeting him for the first time?
For us as Namibians who grew up in the 1970s, 1980s, the name of Sam Nujoma was a very important name. Once you hear that name, you are moved from within and from without in terms of getting ready to fight for the liberation of our country. So as a young person, having been active in NANSO, in the Sobo Youth League, we were always listening to his messages through Radio Namibia that was broadcast from Angola and from Zambia, just getting his messages. At times, we would hear from our elders who would travel to meet with him outside about the works that he did. But my very first encounter with the founding father physically is in 1989 when they came back. For the first time, I was in the same venue where he was when he was addressing these rallies, and it was really electrifying to be in the same company like with him. But the real time that we met on a face-to-face basis was when I joined the Namibia Ports Authority, NAMPORT, in 2009, when he came to visit the port. And just to sit next to him, I was sitting right next to him because I was hosting him for that event. It was just unbelievable. I couldn't believe that in my lifetime, I would have an opportunity to sit next to a giant that was larger than life, that really inspired all Namibians towards the liberation of our country. So it was a wonderful moment. And ever since, we've had a close relationship and we met on many occasions.
Just to reflect a little bit on what were some of his views, and we know that, of course, he was a huge nationalist. He was really for infrastructure development and really just the self-reliance for us as a country economically. That was one of his main tenets. What was your experience and his thinking around, the nature of the work, particularly in terms of expanding on some of the port infrastructure that we have and potentially making Namibia into a major logistical hub somewhere in the future?
Yes, Ikato, we all know that Comrade Nujoma was a Pan-Africanist, and he has always believed that as we develop as a nation, we should develop together with the rest of Africa. And when he came to office, there were some critical infrastructure initiatives that happened under his leadership. Just mentioned but a few, the bridge that was built at Katiba Mulilo, combining, joining Namibia with Zambia, was a very major initiative that was made by President Nujoma during his time. And ever since that bridge was built, we have seen significant improvement in the movement of people and goods between Zambia and Namibia in a very safe manner. We also know that during his time, we have introduced what was called MOATEC 2000 project, which was Ministry of Works and Transport and Communication 2000 project. That was done with the help of the Swedish government. During this project, we looked at all the transport modes, amongst others. And then that is when we saw the birth of RCC, RA, RFA, and also we have seen how an MTC was developed during that time. So it's a big initiative from the president at the time. And he believed in the need for us to develop our road infrastructure within the country, but also linking our country with the rest of our neighbors. We have seen the development of the national road that leads to the Botswana border, but also the development between Rundu and Katima, and many other roads that were aimed at developing our economy. But at the same time, some of the roads were social roads that were aimed at bringing communities together. So the president was also very serious about the development of harbour infrastructure, to the extent that the harbour enlargement project that happened under my leadership was way back initiated during his time. And he believed that the Walvis Bay port was amongst the best ports on the African continent, and that we must give our best to ensure that trade between our neighboring countries in SADC and the rest of the world happens through the port of Walvis Bay. Therefore, he was very keen during his time as president, when I was the CEO there, to come and visit us at the port, giving advice, finding out on the progress of this project. And he had so much interest in what we are doing. So he was indeed a very strong motivator for us to finish that project.
Mr. Uirab, is there perhaps one specific fond memory with the founding father that you can share with us?
I must say there were quite a number of them. I'll probably refer to two.
Two is fine.
The first one was, very quickly, he visited Walvis Bay and went to the house of Tate Bastos, whom I saw putting a very moving tribute in the paper last week. And then he called me there. There was nothing specific to discuss, but he just wanted to find out how I was doing, how are the projects. And then he introduced me to a delicacy, which happened to be called kokochas. It is something that I never knew. It is a head of a hakefish that is specially prepared by the wife of Tate Bastos. It's the first time that the founding father introduced me to that delicacy, and until now, every time when I go to Walvis Bay, I must have kokochas, and every time I have that, it reminds me to that particular meeting with the founding father where we introduced that particular product. The second encounter that I can remember and recall is during the construction of the project at Walfish Bay. The founding father called me and my chairman then at Namport, and he wanted to be updated on the progress of that project. And then he summoned us to his farm, and my former chairman Jerry and I had to go to a tunda to the farm to really just spend a day with him and to fully brief him on the progress of the project. And he was very proud of the work that we did, and he really encouraged us to continue to serve our nation and to make sure that we develop our infrastructure so that Walfish Bay can become one of the most efficient, biggest ports in Africa. So that is the two specific instances that I can mention for now, but there are many more.
I think I want to leave it there. Of course, I really wanted to reflect on the business from the NCCI side, but I've got Mr. Tara Shanika on standby that will join us. I can perhaps do that. Just in conclusion from your side, how best can we, and I really think, because of the experience as a public executive at the highest level in the country, I really want you to draw on that experience. What is it that can be done, or how best can public executives such as yourselves, of those that hold positions of such importance within the public administration, continue his legacy and build on what he has left behind?
Thank you, Ricardo. President Nujoma was a big thinker. He is a man with vision. And we as business leaders in Namibia must make sure that we fulfill some of the dreams that he had. Sometimes he would come up with ideas that look like it's almost impossible to execute, but really we are now, as we are growing up and starting to understand what this world offers us, we must make sure that we fulfill the big dreams that he had. We must ensure that we raise our children as Namibians who are committed to the uplifting of the well-being of all the people of this country. And he also ensured that we must take care of the most needy Namibians. We should not neglect those who are seen to be on the lowest strata of our society. We must make sure that they are taken care of, that we build our continent, and that we also become relevant in terms of our Pan-Africanist standing. That whatever we do, we must work together with our brothers and sisters from other parts of Africa to build a united Africa that is strong economically, that can trade amongst itself. And that is what our founding father believed in, that we can trade amongst ourselves as Africans, that we can be self-reliant, and those dreams must be continued at all costs. We must remain committed to the cause of our country.
Thank you very much, Mr.